flesh in God's glory. When we look at this text, Paul is dealing with a church of Corinth that is having tremendous problems with diversity. He's dealing with three different types of people. He's dealing with, if you read the text in its entirety, which I don't have time to do today, if you read the text, he is dealing with the Jews, he is dealing with the Greeks, and he's dealing with the Gentiles, which are us. He's dealing with three different people. The first group of people were the Jews. The Jewish people were people who through the history of the Mosaic law, through the history of the Levitical law, God had given the children of Israel, the Hebrew nation, the Bible. He gave them the Old Testament, the first half of this wonderful book that we have. And all throughout that first part of this Bible, God showed the Hebrew nation many signs and wonders. When he brought them out of Egypt, he brought them out of Egypt doing many signs and doing many wonders. When he brought them out of Egypt, he put 10 plagues on the Egyptians so that eventually the Egyptians would eventually let them go. Then he opened up the Red Sea that they could walk over on dry land, and then he drowned the Egyptian army under this water. Then he brought them over into the wilderness. Then he fed them with manna from heaven. They didn't have to go out and hunt. They didn't have to go out and the Israelites didn't have to go out and farm. God gave them everything they needed. God told Moses to strike a rock and water came out of that rock. God did many signs for the children of Israel, the Hebrews, the Jews. So the Jewish people were used to receiving signs. They wanted to see something in order to believe something. They had to see it first. That's why when Jesus came, they could not receive Jesus, because Jesus didn't come in a miraculous way. Jesus came lowly in a manger, wrapped in swaddling clothes. And because he did not come the way they expected him to come, they could not receive him, because they were a people who were used to receiving signs. They wanted to see a miracle. They wanted to see something with their eye, because they were accustomed, in their history, they were accustomed to signs. There was another group that Paul had to address in this book of Corinth. He had to address, now mind you, all of these people were in the same church. He had to address the Greek people, the people of Greece, those that were intellectually, who thought they were intellectually superior to the average man. The Greek people thought that they had a monopoly on knowledge and education. They studied mythology, they studied the stars, they studied the moon, they had this God, they had that God, they had that God, and then God turned them over to Christianity. And when they accepted Christianity, but they could not accept the whole thing. So they brought their own way of thinking into Christianity. So to them it was foolishness, the preaching of the cross. That God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son and brought him into the world, and he laid his life down, went to a cross, went to an old rugged cross. To them it sounded foolish. They accepted it, but in the back of their mind they still could not believe it. How many know there are people in the church today, they say they are saved, but they have not accepted the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help them God. There are people who still are warring inside of themselves whether or not Jesus came and was born of a virgin. There are people right in here probably still warring with the fact. Now if God can breathe into some dirt in Genesis chapter 1 and breathe into dirt a spirit, and that spirit became a man, why can't we believe that God came, manifested himself in the spirit, came and engulfed himself in Mary's womb and came forth out of her womb? Why we can't receive that? Then we might as well throw the whole thing out. But the Greek people, they were so intellectual, Sister Jackson, they could not accept the whole truth. Then he had a group of people who just was happy to be in the number. There was a group of people called Gentiles. They were outcasts. They were people that were outcasts. They were not accepted in any form of religion because they had none. They were a lost people. They were, in the Jews' eyes and in the Greek eyes, they were foolish. Because they were just foolish enough to believe God and take Him at His word.